Eriksson, Director General of the Swedish Transport Administration. You'll take that seat if you would, please, Lena. Then we have Pip Spence, who is Deputy Secretary at the Australian Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Communications. You'll be in the second seat, Pip Spence, if you don't mind. Then we have Benny Engelbrecht. He's Denmark's. May I just switch your places, please? Can I ask Benny Engelbrecht to come here? And I'm going to ask the Minister of Transport and Urban Mobility from Mali to move next to Benny, please. Sorry, I'm moving. Yes, you are the little puzzle piece that gets shifted. So, Monsieur, s'il vous plaît, le siège là-bas. Merci. Merci. Now we're good. Yes, exactly. And I will go over here and then do another introduction for those whose names didn't get mentioned properly yet. So, as I said, we have Lena Eriksson here on the left, Director General at the Swedish Transport Administration. Then we have Pip Spence, Deputy Secretary at the Australian Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Communications. Benny Engelbrecht is Denmark's Minister of Transport. Next, we have Monsieur le Ministre de Mali, and he is Ibrahima Abdul Liu, Minister of Transport and Urban Mobility. Next up, Saleh Nasser Al Yassa is Minister of Transport for Saudi Arabia. It's also a great pleasure to welcome Cora van Nieuwenhuizen. She is the Netherlands Minister of Infrastructure and Water Development. And finally, Hendrik Henriksson is President and CEO of Scania. So we will begin, as we did in our last panel, with a short 5-minute input from Lena Eriksson to get us started. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, dear friends of road and traffic safety. In recent decades, as we heard before lunch, road safety has made great progress. However, before Vision Zero, another safe system approaches were introduced. The road system was largely designed to maximize capacity and mobility, and not safety. It has been a belief that mobility must pay a price in lives. Vision Zero, on the other hand, suggests it is ethically irresponsible that people die while just walking to school, biking to the park, or driving to work. In a civilized society, we have a moral responsibility to ensure that people can move safely in their communities. In fact, it is possible to prevent fatal accidents and long-term injuries by addressing these issues proactively. In recent years, this dramatic change, as we heard before, in thinking has prevented tragedies and, of course, saved lives. Further, Vision Zero means that the road user and the designer of the road system share a safety responsibility together. Those who plan and build roads and vehicles must always take into account that people actually make mistakes and make sure that support a good behavior in traffic. The road user, on the other hand, is responsible for following the rules. If the user fails to do so, the system designer needs to take further steps in order to prevent people from dying or being injured. There are several reasons why the transport system needs to be improved, and road safety often enables other sustainability goals. Without compromising with a view of a safe system, it is time to address these different goals simultaneously. For example, lack of safety affects a wide range of social needs, directly or indirectly, and influence many of the goals in the 2030 agenda. Therefore, we need to integrate safety across different sectors. For instance, in high-income countries, there's a major challenge with children who need more of physical activity. For the first time in history, children are predicted to have a shorter lifespan than their parents. In order to stimulate active mobility among children, targets are raised so that they should be able to walk or bike to school safely. In practice, it means that there is a need for a maximum speed of 30 kilometers an hour in these areas. a lower speed can also be supported by new technology mentioned by Maria Croft here that are more cost-effective. Connected vehicles can be geofenced, so the speed limit cannot be exceeded. I think it's one good example of modern technique that can support traffic safety. Another example, a significant proportion of climate emission is due to speeding. This means that sustainable speeds are needed both for climate and safety reasons. Moreover, beyond 2020, the society expects governments, business, and other fleet owners to practice a zero tolerance against speeding. To address this issue, we can use requirement for procurement, also mentioned good example of that before here, and also sustainable reports that are needed if we should achieve these goals. Regarding this long-term goal, the 2030 agenda for the sustainability development goals emphasizes that they need to be managed in a more integrated way. The goals are indivisible and absolute. We need to be better at managing more goals that affect the transport system simultaneously. Mobility must take place within the framework of a sustainable society, which is healthy, fossil-free, and safe. The transport system cannot allow mobility to grow on the expenses of health or environmental issues. The Swedish Transport Administration has initiated a new research platform in order to integrate and develop the Vision Zero work with other sustainability challenges. The platform is based on the 9 recommendations from the International Academy Expert Group for this Global Ministerial Conference on Road Safety. These recommendations show the next steps to save lives in traffic after 2020 by combining the instrument of the 2030 agenda. Looking ahead, safety, as expressed in the Vision Zero, will be a natural part of new solutions, along with other health and quality of life concepts. This requires future research on road safety to collaborate with several different research areas. More actors can and need to contribute, and it is essential that we cooperate on both a national and international level and continue to learn from each other, like we do in this conference. Finally, both road safety and other sustainability goals have much to gain from being more integrated. Road safety can and will no longer develop in isolation. It is a precondition for a more sustainable society. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Elena. So let us start right in with a first round of questions. And I have my eye on the clock. We did get started a bit later, so I'm going to ask again, if you would, for pretty brief responses. But let's start out by talking about how each of your countries, or in the case of Scania, your company, understands and applies Vision Zero, and how, in fact, you see this link between it and sustainable development challenges, not only in the transport sector, but also beyond it. So I'll just go straight down the panel, starting out with you, Pip Spence.
Oh, thanks, Melinda. So in Australia, Vision Zero, which underpins the Safe Systems principle, has been the underpinning of our approach to road safety since 2004. The core principle that no one should die or have a serious injury on the road can ever be acceptable sort of has underpinned the way in which we've approached road safety. And it's important to think in Australia, we have about 900,000 kilometres of road that makes it quite complex, managed by 3 levels of government. So the fact that you have all tiers of government who are all committed to the same principle makes a huge difference. In terms of the point about how do we actually see, not just from road safety, but sort of some of the other sustainable development goals, how you can actually see the Vision Zero support those. A really great example we've got in Australia is it's a small program called On the Right Track, and it's designed around helping some of our Indigenous Australians actually get their driver's licence. And what we've seen with this small program, that over the course of 2 years, we've seen the percentage of that population grow with their driver's licence go from 17% to 36%, which, while significantly less than the average of around 89%, this is something that not just ensures you've got people who know how to drive safely. This helps from an inequality perspective as well, and it gives people access to a whole range of other things that come with having that sort of the driver's licence beside them. So that's just a really good example in South Australia about how you can see the broader application of the Safe Systems Principle and Vision Zero.
May I just ask you very briefly, because so many of us have seen the pictures from Australia, the fires, and you were mentioning it before the panel began, and I thought it was very interesting to talk a little bit about how that tragedy also presents you with an opportunity.
Yeah, so one of the key things that after the bushfires, which were, quite devastating for a number of areas in Australia, is a big focus has been around building back better. And as with everything, there are opportunities that come with disasters, and one of the things that we'll be working very closely with the states and territories is, as we rebuild some of these roads that have been destroyed, how do you actually make sure that you're putting in some of those clear mechanisms and tools that actually which help from a road safety perspective. So things like the audible lines on the side of the road so people don't veer off, and those single car accidents in some of our regional areas, which are quite devastating in Australia. So really looking for those opportunities.
Thank you very much. So let me move on to Minister Engelbrecht, and again, that link between safe systems as applied by your country and the SDGs.
Well, Denmark obviously has a strong history in making sure that we have cars and soft pedestrians, bikes and so on in individual paths and individual lanes. Together with Holland, we have some very good, the Netherlands we have some very good examples. We don't just build highways for cars, we build highways for bikes as well. So actually the most effective way to go through the cities on your bike without ever having to be faced with the cars. That's not only good for the bikes, but for the cars as well. We're not a car producing country, and for that reason we've got our focus on how the roads are designed. And of course, we support the Vision Zero when it comes to building vehicles that are safe. But we also have some skeptical views on only having that focus on the physical parameters. It's also important to acknowledge that human behavior is very important. And actually, when we look at the raw figures on the deaths in accidents in Denmark, 61% of all deaths can be linked directly to the attention or the lack of attention on where you're going on the road. So I think it's important that when we look at how cars are designed, not only big lorries, but also personal cars, that of course we need to design them as good as possible. But maybe it's not the only way. We should focus our attention on having manufacturers looking into how they can be a part of the Vision Zero. I mean, the largest killer probably in traffic right now is in your own pocket. Mm-hmm. It's your mobile phone. I mean, we've seen cases of not just people texting or talking, but playing games on their iPhone while they were driving a car. And obviously that will lead to accidents, that will lead to deaths. So maybe we should not just look into the things that we ask car producers, car manufacturers to do. Maybe we should look into raising awareness within the telecom industry as well. Because basically a telephone, well, that can actually sense whether you're moving 5 kilometers an hour, 100 kilometers an hour. Maybe you could actually do something in the software where the phone can't actually operate if you're operating your vehicle. I'm just saying.
We see that, don't we, in the navigation apps that say, sorry, you can't do this right now because you're moving. So clearly.
But if your phone is handheld, it's difficult, right? Yeah.
I'm very glad that you mentioned the separation barriers nonetheless as an element of design. I live in a wonderful European city where I share my bike lane with buses. And when I was in Denmark admiring those bike highways, I was told it's very simple. Separate hard from soft.
Definitely. That's how simple it is. That is how simple it is.
Let me ask Minister Lee from Mali to please share with us how your country uses Vision Zero and links it up with the Sustainable Development Goals.
Merci, Madame Crane. Merci à la Suède, des sources d'inspiration pour le Mali, mon pays, à bâtir sa stratégie de sécurité selon l'approche du système sûr. Merci également à la Banque mondiale pour son assistance technique au Mali, pour l'élaboration de notre stratégie de sécurité routière basée sur l'approche du système sûr. Je suis du Mali, un pays qui est en guerre contre le terrorisme dans le Sahel, qui consacre à peu près 25% de son budget national pour lutter contre ces terroristes qui nous imposent une guerre. Malgré ces pesanteurs qui pèsent sur notre économie nationale, et comment le Mali a compris la vision zéro et comment le Mali, mon pays, l'applique. Nous partons d'une locution latine errare humanum est, l'erreur est humaine, et nous sommes des êtres humains. Êtres humains que nous sommes, nous ferons toujours des erreurs dans la circulation routière. Et je viens d'un pays en voie de développement, mais dont la jeunesse vit dans le monde village planétaire. Nos jeunes voient ce qui se passe ailleurs, bien qu'étant en Afrique, au Mali, mon pays, ils ont quasiment les mêmes modes de consommation que les jeunes dans les pays dits développés. Donc, face à cette situation, quelles sont les solutions que nous envisageons à notre niveau pour corriger les erreurs humaines, pour que ces erreurs, chez nous, on ne dira pas que ça n'entraînera pas de décès. On travaillera tous les jours à ce que les décès soient amoindris. On travaillera toujours à nous donner les moyens pour que les blessures graves puissent être prises en charge là où les accidents interviennent pour que les secours arrivent dans les meilleurs délais. Et au Mali, nous travaillons à ça depuis 2015. Le Mali a institué par décret un audit de la sécurité routière dans tous les projets ayant une incidence sur la sécurité routière. Nous disposons d'un outil de démarche préventive, de détection et de correction des défauts des infrastructures routières. Et nous travaillons également à protéger les usagers dits vulnérables. Je veux parler des deux roues et des piétons et les personnes à mobilité réduite. Et dans mon pays, il y a beaucoup de motocyclistes, il y a beaucoup de piétons. C'est le moyen de transport par excellence, mais aussi il y a beaucoup de véhicules. Il y a beaucoup de véhicules, des véhicules généralement importés des pays développés et propres généralement à la casse dans ces pays-là et qui se font une nouvelle jeunesse dans nos pays. Donc, la principale cause d'accidents dans nos pays, c'est généralement l'excès de vitesse. Et il y a un aménagement en cours, des ralentisseurs de vitesse à des endroits bien déterminés, dans les school zones par exemple, à l'entrée des marchés, à l'entrée des grandes villes. Et ce travail est fait par des volontaires que nous postons généralement aux principaux passages de piétons pour qu'ils régulent le passage des élèves entre leur domicile et l'école. Nous construisons également, avec les moyens qui nous restent après la guerre, des passerelles qui surplombent les artères principales des grandes villes. Et nous construisons également le long des corridors, parce que le Mali est un pays continental où la mer est assez loin, donc il y a des aires de repos également que nous construisons pour les conducteurs, avec des campements pour les chauffeurs qui sont fatigués pour qu'ils puissent se reposer. Et puis la limitation également journalière de conduite est de 9 heures dans notre pays, entrecoupée par des temps de repos de 30 minutes. On a également une législation que nous voulons rigoureuse sur les visites techniques, parce que les véhicules venant d'Europe nous arrivent déjà âgés. Il faut que nous nous assurons, avant de les mettre en circulation, qu'ils sont en bon état. Donc il y a une visite technique une fois par an qui arrive. Et actuellement, on a quand même limité l'âge d'importation des véhicules dans notre pays à 10 ans. Tous les véhicules qui ont plus de 10 ans ne peuvent plus rentrer au Mali. En attendant que nous ayons donc des usines d'assemblage de véhicules, ce qui est également un projet en cours, nous nous efforçons de voir comment le parc peut être renouvelé petit à petit. Et très prochainement, et probablement dans l'année prochaine, en 2021, nous aurons la première usine d'assemblage de véhicules à Bamako, et ce qui nous permettra déjà de retirer petit à petit les véhicules d'un certain âge qui sont dans la circulation pour les enlever. Nous sommes un pays musulman. On ne s'imagine pas que nos enfants boivent de l'alcool. Oui, nos enfants boivent de l'alcool, mais c'est un sujet tabou. Et c'est une cause des accidents, mais nous avons du mal à faire une campagne contre l'alcool, parce qu'on ne s'imagine même pas que les gosses puissent boire de l'alcool. Et ceux qui vont en boîte de nuit les week-ends rentrent à la maison complètement éméchés, et il arrive malheureusement qu'il y ait des accidents. Il y a des stupéfiants également que les gosses peuvent sniffer ou fumer. Il y a tous ces comportements à risque sur lesquels nous sommes en train de travailler. Et évidemment, le téléphone, c'est notre dada, nous tous. On téléphone en conduisant, on envoie des SMS en conduisant. Et là, nos gosses, nos enfants vivent comme les enfants américains, européens. Ils ont le même type de comportement. Mais les jeunes, vous devez savoir une chose, vos vies ne vous appartiennent pas. Vos vies appartiennent à vos familles également. Donc, quand vous sortez le soir, nous vous attendons. Nous avons l'espoir qu'après votre virée nocturne, vous revenez à la maison. Donc, soyez responsables quand vous allez vous amuser. Je vous remercie.
Je vous remercie. Merci beaucoup. Minister Aljassa, I'd like to ask you to say a word in your response about safe systems, about your own Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia, which you have adopted and which is somewhat similar to the SDGs and also covers a very broad array of sectors that in fact are indirectly, if not directly, connected to road safety. So perhaps you can talk a little bit about the parallels there.
Yes, the National Saudi Vision 2030 calls for, redevelopment and upgrades in many areas, wide areas of development, whether economical, social, and other activities. And it has set very ambitious targets, particularly for road safety, where we started from really a low level back in 2015. And we have adapted the safe system approach and started a national committee led by the Minister of Health, with participation from Minister of Transport, Minister of Interior, and Minister of Education, and a number of other government and non-government where they work together and they put a very ambitious plan that calls for reduction of fatality by 2/3 in 2030. And they started, of course, with unifying data between the different government entities, and they started setting gradual targets year by year and working on infrastructure where, for example, on the roads, we have identified the black spots and worked upon them in coordination with different, government entities. We also invested heavily on smart detection systems, which we found to be very effective in reducing accidents and in reducing fatalities. In the last 3 years alone, we were able to reduce fatalities and accidents by more than 1/3. And, we're raising the bar on ourselves. We have, very ambitious targets going forward. We also learning from, other successful experiences. And from what I see here, that everyone is in agreement about the need to have more focus and more collaboration on road safety. And almost we are on agreement on the approach. We just need to move from vision into more action and more funding, allocating more resources globally toward this important issue.
Thank you very much. I'm quite interested in your point about uniform data being available. Madam Oibaya told us this morning that each ministry is working with a different set of data, and clearly if we expect a multi-sectoral systemic approach, people need to be moving from the same basis point when it comes to information.
Absolutely. Actually, the definition of we've started by unifying the definition. Every ministry or every department has their own definition for data. We started by unifying the definition and then collecting, information the right way, and also sharing information between the different government entities. And this was the basis of putting a practical plan to progress in this important area.
Thank you very much. Let me come now to Minister Neuwenhuizen. And Netherlands has one of the world's lowest road traffic death rates. So perhaps you can say a bit about how Vision Zero played into that. And then if I can just throw in one challenge to the question as well. Are there still gaps when it comes to shifting responsibility away from users and toward system designers, road builders, and so on? Because the fact is that pedestrians and cyclists still make up 40% of those deaths that do occur, as I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, and let me also start by thanking the Swedes, not only for hosting this interesting conference, but also for starting with the Vision Zero approach. We in the Netherlands adopted that as well. We embraced the holistic approach of it. Of course, we started by investing in our infrastructure, more forgiving roads, as they are called, with less obstacles. We focus, of course, on technology, not only alongside the roads, but also in the vehicles. So we work together with a lot of car manufacturers and other European member states as well, also in sharing the data. So I would like to underline what my colleague said from Saudi Arabia. That's also very important. Of course, we have the legislation in place also for the new challenges, because I would really like to underline what the Danish colleague mentioned, that probably distraction is one of the biggest challenges that we face now. And then, like you said, the mobile phone can really become killer number one. And that is what we focus on now in the Netherlands as well. For example, let me tell you that research in the Netherlands showed that if you look at businesses, that employers think it is normal and they ask from their employees that while driving they should not only read texts but they're even expect them to answer. So that is really totally irresponsible, and yet 1 out of 10 SMEs but also larger companies, they still work like that. So that is something new that we focus on. And also on the young people, I was very impressed with what they showed us today and what we heard from yesterday. That is also something that we are working on in the Netherlands, using young artists. For example, now we have a video clip where a young rapper sings a song about how much in love he is with his girl, and you see them beautifully together, but then the clip ends because the boy dies because he is texting her while cycling. So that is a number 1 in the charts in the Netherlands now. So that is a new way of approaching young people and really showing what they should do. That's and we even have rally drivers promoting that when you are driving, you can focus only on the driving. People think that they can multitask, but we can't. So we should acknowledge that and focus on driving. So many behavioral aspects. That is the new direction that we're adding to the things that we have been doing for the last decade.
Great, thank you very much. And now to Scania. And Mr. Henriksen, you head one of the world's leading manufacturers of trucks and buses, and you've put into place some very ambitious aims when it comes to environmental sustainability, CO2 emissions. What are your ambitions as a company when it comes to Vision Zero? And does it in fact have meaning for Scania as a vehicle manufacturer?
Yeah, so being part of the system of transport and logistics around the world, of course, we are one of the big contributors to CO2. Roughly 20% of the global CO2 comes from our sector. And we are a big contributor also when it comes to all the fatalities in the world when it comes to road safety. So we as a company, we have adopted an attitude that is, we don't want to be part of a problem, we want to be part of a solution. So our purpose as a company is to drive the shift towards a more sustainable transport system. And for us, within sustainability, you have road safety. Road safety and sustainability goes hand in hand, because sustainability is not only the environmental part of the agenda, it's also the societal part of the agenda, and that's where it goes together. And what we're doing as a company is, of course, working with, in our case, 3 pillars to try to create this agenda. It's about more energy efficient vehicles, about moving over to renewable biofuels and electrification, but it's also about using data, smart and connected safe vehicles. We have since 2011 connected all our vehicles that we have produced. So today around the world, in your countries, wherever you see a Scania, it will be connected, which means that every minute it's sending information where it is, who is driving it, how much fuel, how much CO2, how much is loaded. And of course that data can be used then to promote a more safe traffic system. So we're working with our products, of course, to make them more from a active safety, to make them more safe, but also to, of course, protect the driver. Today in the world, the truck driver and bus driver is a scarce resource. It's difficult to find someone who wants to have this job. And of course, there is now a pull from the transport companies to provide the vehicles with more safety. So we're working hard with passive and active safety for the vehicles, but that's not enough. We need to think about the system solution that was mentioned here before. And let me give you one example, and that is the best thing we can do, in my opinion, is, of course, to park the cars and get into the bus. And to look at many of you in your countries, you have bus rapid transit systems, dedicated bus lanes that making basically the bus a subway system above ground. One of the systems that we provide, and then we don't provide only vehicles. We design the vehicles, we build the infrastructure, we train the drivers. We have done that in Africa and Asia. The latest one I remember is from Mexico. And on this stretch, where the normal traffic was replaced with a BRT system, the CO2 emissions went down, the local CO2 emissions went down with more than 90%, and the traffic accidents went down with 50%. And I think that is a true example of how road safety and sustainability goes hand in hand. And this can only be done if we, as a company, as a provider of solutions for mobility, work hand in hand with the policymakers and with the politicians and with the authorities, and not play this game of we against you. We have to reach out across the aisle. We have a common goal, and if we work together, openly and transparent, we will find solutions, like we have done in Sweden, but also like we have done in other parts of the world.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at the time, and I basically have two things I still want to talk about. One is cooperation and participation, how we get coordination and partnerships going to take us to the goals we're talking about. And the other one is to take a brief look at those expert committee recommendations that Lena Eriksson mentioned in her talk. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to ask whoever wants to speak to the issue of coordination and cooperation to do so now, to just give me a sign and tell me what you think is most crucial here. What cooperations have you experienced that worked well? What do you think? But I would say not everyone has to speak to that point, because I do want to get to the other point as well. So who would like to say something? Okay, good. We'll start at this end this time. Please, Minister Neuwenhuizen.
Okay, well, I'm very proud that I can say that in the Netherlands we have a road safety alliance, not just with the government on all the different levels of the municipalities and the provinces and the national level, but also with partners in the private sector, with NGOs, with the knowledge institutions. We all actually are here with a large delegation from all these different backgrounds, and I think that is really the solution. It is both top-down and bottom-up, all kinds of practical solutions, but also the issues like sharing the data between all the different, because we also have insurance companies, for example, they have separate data that if you combine that to the data that the knowledge institutions have, but also that the public sector has, then you can really make a difference. So I'm very proud to say that we have one big road safety family in the Netherlands, and I could recommend that to everybody.
And who has the responsibility for coordinating that? Okay, great. We're going to talk in our next panel about leadership, so that was just to set up that topic. Please, I think Minister Aljasa, you said you also wanted to say.
I can't agree more about the need of working together. No single party can, make solid progress without working with everyone else. In Saudi Arabia, we have set the ministerial committee, which was led by the Minister of Health, not Minister of Transport nor Minister of Interior, and this made a big difference. In the past, in 1 year, we had up to 30% of our hospital beds occupied by people who are involved in accidents. So he has a lot in stake. So by doing that, we were able to achieve a major progress. Also, collaborative approach is very important. We need to tackle this issue by working together, unifying targets, unifying information, and this is the only way to make progress.
Thank you very much. So I guess all the ministers want to speak to this point, and that's great. Please, Monsieur le Ministre de Mali.
Je serai très bref, Madame Kram. Et de la vision à l'action, nous sommes en train au Mali de fonder tous nos espoirs sur le concept de la mobilité urbaine. Et en créant moins de monde sur les routes, en développant d'autres types de transports, en modernisant le transport urbain par le système de bus rapide de transfert qu'on veut développer pour que les uns et les autres garent leurs véhicules et empruntent des moyens de transport modernes. La ville de Bamako est traversée par un fleuve, le fleuve Niger. Nous comptons également développer le transport fluvial à travers la ville de Bamako et pour que les étudiants, parce que le fleuve Niger passe à côté des grandes écoles, pour que les étudiants garent leur moto et empruntent le bateau pour aller à l'école. Nous sommes en train également de penser à développer un système de train urbain et sur à peu près 35 km, ça nous permettra de gérer le flux est-ouest et dans les deux sens aux heures de bureau. Et nous sommes en train également de penser à créer un système qui effraie un peu mes compatriotes, mais qui est un système sûr, un système de téléphérique, et parce que Bamako est dans la cuvette et on veut créer un système de téléphérique pour aller vers les hôpitaux qui sont au sommet de la colline et à l'école de médecine également où il y a un grand taux d'étudiants. Je vous remercie. Donc, nous développerons le concept de mobilité urbaine. Merci beaucoup.
Minister Engelbrecht.
In terms of the collaboration and cooperation between public and private companies, entities, and so on, we also have a road safety council in Denmark, much like in the Netherlands. It's independent, and I think one of the most important learnings from their important work is that at least politicians should listen to their advice. We had recently, I probably think most countries have the electrical scooters in their cities floating everywhere, right? Now, this council said to us, said to the politicians, and said to the previous government, listen, we are a bit concerned because there's a big possibility that we'll have a lot of problems with head injuries with these types of vehicles. So we think you should imply a helmet, so you have to wear a helmet to use it. And the politicians decided not to do so in the legislation, and now 1 year later we can see that we did actually have 8 times as many casualties with head injuries as on a normal bike. So that's a huge problem. So basically we should of course listen to the good advice, and we are probably going to have the helmets on the scooters in the near future, at least if the parliament in Denmark supports it. So it's important to have these organizations and these entities that can actually give you good advice as to where do we use our many millions of kroner in terms of our campaigns. We have some very good quality campaigns in Denmark as well, but we should also, as politicians, listen to the good advice. That's a very important lesson learned.
Thank you. Pip Spence, I think you wanted to speak to cooperation. Yeah.
Just very quickly, just something I feel quite passionate about, because governments can't do this alone, and we've got some really great examples in Australia. We've got a very strong drug driving testing procedures in place. We wouldn't have had that if we hadn't had the academic organisations and the police working with government. We've got Peter Fraser in the audience here, Peter, who heads up one of our NGOs, the Sarah Group, and again, having voices like that telling government what we need to do is vitally important. And just picking up on the industry thing, in 2014 we established a States and Territories working with industry, a National Road Safety Partnership, which promotes road safety in the workplace. And again, by having the different parties in the room together, you get such a better outcome than trying to second guess what the answer is just by government alone.
Thank you very much. Mr. Henriksen, if you want to speak to cooperation, I'm going to give you that chance when we go to our next topic, and you can just add it on. How's that? Because I'd like to get the slide up here, if we could now, please, to take a look at the expert group recommendations. And essentially, in a last very brief round of discussion, I'd like to talk about priorities going forward and how you can reference perhaps some of these in terms of what you think is especially crucial to making safer road systems a driver of larger societal sustainability. So it's a little hard for our panelists to see. I'm going to quickly read off what these recommendations are, hoping that all of you have seen this document as well. So they are sustainable practices and reporting, the notion of the importance of data that we actually talked about a bit already, procurement, the use of procurement to really work toward safer systems and the example that can be set by government. Modal shift, which of course was mentioned by Mr. Henriksson, among others, the fact that we can move toward more public transportation. Child and youth health, that was the point I believe made by Lena, was that right? Yes, that we're seeing decreasing life expectancies for young people who don't move as much. Infrastructure, realizing the value of safe system design from the beginning, embedding it in engineering. Safe vehicles across the globe, so minimum sets of safety standards. And then last three, zero speeding, enforcement issues and others, 30 kilometers an hour in urban areas, and finally, technology. So all of you can be thinking, I'm going to start with Mr. Henriksson, and all of you can be thinking about what you really consider to be most crucial there, and then just a word about it, because our time is very limited. Please.
Okay, so very quickly, in short term, I think it is what we can do is on the 30 kilometer per hour. I think the example that was made by the inspirational speaker before, very good example of how by geofencing of technology of the vehicle, we can, when it comes into a certain zone of the city, make sure that the vehicle goes down to maximum 30 kilometers and maybe goes into an electric mode as well, hence both approaching or addressing both sustainability and safety. Then I would like to touch on more long-term is technology. I don't know how much, I know that it's been up on the agenda. Autonomous self-driving vehicles will of course give us some lever when it comes to traffic safety, because we will take out the human element. But there will of course be other elements of risk coming in. And one of them that we shouldn't underestimate is that these vehicles will be one way or another connected, which means that they will be subject to cybersecurity. They will be subject also to artificial intelligence. We need to program the vehicle in a way that it has to choose if it should go in a traffic situation left or right, basically running over a small dog or a big dog, or even worse, you can probably imagine. And of course that responsibility we have to take on. But there is a great possibility with autonomous systems, but then we need to go hand in hand again, policymakers, vehicle manufacturers and the public. We need to have the public with us as well, because otherwise we will not get acceptance for this.
May I just ask you, and I realize it's not your sector, vehicles, but we see vehicle manufacturers out there who continue to lobby for essentially limited speed limits or not having clear speed limits in some very important European countries.
Yeah, I mean, for heavy vehicles, I think we...
No, I know it's not your sector, but...
Yeah, but I think just give the example anyway. I mean, because... when we limit, the law says 89 kilometers for heavy vehicles. We recommend all our customers to run at least not higher than 80, because then you can save up to 10% of CO2 and fuel, which is the biggest part of the cost for our operators, roughly 50% of the cost. And of course, apart from the CO2, the traffic accidents goes down, which I think was shown on the examples earlier before. So it doesn't make sense to go. I mean, you might come 5 minutes earlier, but you also might come 50 years too early to your grave.
Thank you. That was clearly said. Minister Neubenhuizen.
Well, I think they are all very important. So in the end, in choosing one, that then immediately pops up what I think is most important, that is risk analysis. Because in all our countries, we have different situations, and even in a country, you have a different situation in a big city or in a rural area. So I think for every municipality, what is most important is a risk analysis. What are the black spots in your environment, and what is the best solution for that? And for that we need data. So for me that is the combination, a good risk analysis with all the proper data from all different sources combined.
Thank you very much. And that's a great emphasis on the particularity of each country or community's situation. We will be picking up on that in later panels as well. Minister Al-Jassa.
Yeah, I agree that all of these, are areas that will help progress on safety. However, if we had to choose one that would have the biggest impact is technology, in my view. Technology that will bring products that will make it possible to get to vision zero. And in the short term, it helps in detection, a very effective detection of violations.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Lee?
Oui. Oui, le facteur sur lequel il est indispensable d'agir dans notre pays, c'est la maîtrise de la vitesse, lutter contre les excès de vitesse qui sont la cause principale des accidents, lutter contre les comportements à risque. Je reviens sur le téléphone, le port de la ceinture, le port du casque, et pour les motocyclistes, et également s'abstenir de consommer l'alcool et les stupéfiants quand on doit conduire. Et le principal levier sur lequel il faut agir, c'est vraiment la vitesse excessive. Compte tenu de l'état de nos véhicules qui sont généralement mal entretenus, qui nous arrivent déjà très âgés d'Europe et d'Amérique, et donc il faut aller doucement avec. Je vous remercie.
Je vous remercie. Minister Engelbrecht.
Well, it's very difficult to choose one, isn't it? And the point is that they're all important.
You can choose two if you like.
Yeah, but they are all important, and I think all of these aspects should be addressed together with, of course, making sure that we educate the drivers, especially in order to make sure that they take care of each other. I mean, we have a common responsibility, and regardless how much technology you put into vehicles, how much you design the roads, you'll still have potential people that doesn't really care. We have examples in Denmark with people speeding 200 kilometers per hour, putting other people's lives into danger. When we take away their driver's license, they just keep on driving. Actually, we are putting on a package right now where we are enforcing much more eagerly. So we're actually going to confiscate people's cars if they're driving too fast, even though it's a leased car. That's a bit controversial, I might say. So we are going quite a long way. And of course, when it comes to technology, let me just put one little detail into this discussion. Autonomous vehicles. I think there's a huge potential, but the thing is, as I see it right now with the accidents we see with Tesla in the US, for instance, where this should be focused in the coming years is within public transport. So autonomous driving within buses, BRT. The moment you have dedicated lanes, it's much easier to prevent accidents from happening. Actually, we have the first autonomous buses driving in Denmark next month. So this is something that we'll probably see having an effect as well. And one of the advantages, of course, about BRTs are that they can drive extensively more fast in cities if you make the lanes in the appropriate way. So you can have fast public transport and slower personal transport. That can also make the modal change. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration here.
Thank you very much. Pip Spence?
I suppose, sort of from context, in Australia we're in the process of finalising our National Road Safety Strategy for the next 10 years, and a lot of these issues are all obviously going to be part of it. So technology, building the right infrastructure, speed management. But at the end of the day, if we don't have the data and we don't have the clear reporting on how these measures are actually going, we'll never know how successful they actually are. So I'd come back and say it's the data and it's the reporting that we've got to get that right, or otherwise we'll never know how effective our measures actually are.
Thank you very much. And I will say that we're going to leave the discussion there. There's so much more to be talked about, but I'm going to hand over now to Elena to just give us a really quick wrap-up, if you would.
Thank you very much, and I will be quick, but I see the time is on. I think Henrik put it quite well, said that road safety, Vision Zero, and sustainable goals hand in hand. And it fits very well in, I think, to the 2030 agenda, the sustainability development goals. And if you look at the recommendations here, we can see that some of them is very clear, goes that way. For example, modal shift. If you support a public transport system, it's good for road safety, but as well will contribute to reduce CO2 emission, more livable city. We know that people using the public transport system is much more physical active. We can use the space in the cities in a better way, etc., etc. So there are things, I think, in the recommendation that will also support other things. Another thing I was very interesting to listen to was the shared responsibility in the system. And we said we will support good behavior as well as we will prevent and block bad behavior. And there are tools now that can do that. We have geofencing that could actually prevent speeding. We know that we have interlocks to prevent drunk driving. And maybe we need something to prevent distractions in the future as well. So the modern technique can actually support us, both for good behaviors, but also prevent the bad behaviors. A little bit more maybe that the aviation system we discussed, and build that kind of safety design system. So there are a lot of challenges, but there are also a lot of opportunities. And if we work together with the political leadership, with the leadership from the private sector, the NGOs, and the academia together, I think we really can move forward and have, there's a good goal that we can actually reach this goal when we see each other in 2030.
Thank you very much, Lena Eriksson, and thank you very much to all of our panel. Let's give them a very warm round of applause, please. So I will ask you to take your seats, if you would, dear speakers, because we are going to move straight into the next panel. But everybody else in the audience who would like, we're not going to a break, but you can stand up and stretch your legs a bit, if you wish, because we are going to go straight away into another panel. It's going to be a very interesting panel, so no worries. It's intense, but I think it will pick up very well on what we've been talking about. But just 2 minutes of stretching, and then we will proceed.